I'm Owen Bigland. This is the Inside Edge video blog. Wanted to talk about the long-term outlook for Vancouver real estate. Vancouver, let's talk about downtown Vancouver and the surrounding neighborhoods, Mount Pleasant, Kitsilano, Fairview, etc. Because I want to address a couple of reoccurring questions that I've been getting over the last 5 or 6 years or longer, pretty much since I started this blog 9 years ago. Often people will say, you know, real estate prices in Vancouver have to come down because wage growth has not kept pace with the prices. They're always trying to, do the simple math that typical guy makes $50,000 a year in the Lower Mainland, and to buy a one-bedroom condo in Yaletown, you need $650,000. Now, as I've brushed on many times here, and I want to try and keep this fairly brief because this is something I've talked about probably 15 times on my blog over the years, and it's also something that I talk about in my book as well. I've said many times before, but again, it's a reoccurring question I am continually getting. And I've talked about it many times that Vancouver does not work off normal fundamentals, i.e. what the person earns versus what it's going to cost you to buy and support a mortgage. Just like about 50 other cities don't work off fundamentals. Vancouver is not an anomaly, as I've talked about many times. But you see, I think a lot of people don't get out much. They don't travel to Southern California, Santa Monica or Hermosa Beach or Manhattan or San Diego or San Francisco or New York or London. I do. And I know a lot of my viewers travel as well. It's the same thing in those cities. Affordability doesn't work off of fundamentals, i.e. what the average Joe earns. It's like saying the average guy in British Columbia right now might earn $38,000 a year. But if you want to live and buy in downtown Vancouver, you've pretty much got to be making 6 figures right now as far as income goes. Or you've saved for the last 10 years for a substantial down payment, $200,000 or $250,000 to get in, or you're getting help from mom and dad. As I've often pointed out here, Vancouver, like a lot of other cities, doesn't work off fundamentals. I mean, think about it. The price of that Yaletown condo 15 years ago was $275,000. Today, it's going to cost you $675,000. That growth hasn't been because of wage growth, so any correction isn't going to be because of wages either. Vancouver, as I've said many times, is an equity-driven market. It's people that have owned here for a long time and built up a tremendous amount of equity over the last 20 years and ridden the market up. It's also a city that's incredibly desirable. It's what we call an aspirational city. And there are only so many of those to go around. Aspirational cities, but there's still a lot of them in the world. In North America, aspirational cities would be New York, Toronto, Miami, a lot of cities in Southern California, from Santa Monica all the way down to Newport or Laguna. These are cities that are highly desirable, that people aspire to live in. Now, don't get mad at me here, but a place like Winnipeg, Manitoba, or Saskatoon or Moose Jaw, those are not aspirational cities. I know before I get a lot of angry emails, nothing wrong with these cities, and from what I understand, they can be fantastic places to live. But someone doesn't grow up in Toronto, work on Bay Street, with one day aspiring to retire and move to Moose Jaw. They are aspiring to eventually move out west, live the West Coast lifestyle, buy a condo in downtown Vancouver, and enjoy the high quality lifestyle we enjoy here in Vancouver. It's an aspirational city. So you're competing here against buyers from all over the world, especially from other parts of Canada. But of course, you've got buyers coming from China and other parts of Asia. Again, these, for the most part, these are not foreign buyers. They've got their permanent residency status that I always have to point out, or their full Canadian passport. So they're not triggering the foreign buyer's tax, or they're coming up from the United States and buying second or third properties here. Aspirational cities, that's how they work. They don't work off simple fundamentals or what wage growth is. The other thing, of course, is living in downtown Vancouver is like a lot of cities. If you went to England, the typical wage earner there might earn £30,000 a year. If you're living and buying in London, the city of London, you're probably earning 5 times that much. That's exactly the way Vancouver is going as well. And That's not going to change, because now, as I said many times here, a lot of my young buyers now are in these high-paying tech jobs. A lot of my clients, of course, are professionals, lawyers, doctors, but now it's a lot of tech workers as well. So they are rising above the masses as far as pay scale goes. And that's just the way life is. That's the way it is in about 60 or 70 other cities I can name off here. If you want to live in an aspirational city as great as Vancouver, you can't be average. And you shouldn't be average. I've done so many motivational blogs here on how you have to rise above, get a side hustle, bank your money, save your money. On a side note here, I just got back from Los Angeles. And you know, Los Angeles has the same situation we've got in about 30 cities in California, 30 at least. If you think our prices are high, go to Santa Monica, go to Hermosa Beach, go to Manhattan Beach, go to San Francisco, San Diego. You factor in the US dollar, they're substantially more expensive than what we are here in Vancouver. Vancouver's not cheap, but compared to a lot of other cities, London, for instance, far less expensive. But California is similar to Vancouver in a lot of ways. There's a lot of California dreamers out there. I was discussing this with a friend over dinner last week. You know, people come out and aspire to live in California. Some will come from all different parts of the United States. They come out there and hoping to make it. Some make it, some hustle, get into a good career, able to buy a property and live there and stay. Others, of course, fall by the wayside. They can't make it. Many of them have to work 2 and 3 jobs to make ends meet in a city, in a state like California, especially the expensive cities, Hollywood, Los Angeles, Santa Monica, Westwood, wherever. Many will stick around for 2 or 3 or 4 years and then go back to where they came from. Some of them as well, which I've talked about many times before, will go back, regroup, go to a city that's less expensive, maybe let's call it Milwaukee. Get a job that is paying them as much as they were earning in California, but the cost of living is half. They'll regroup, live there for 10 years, bank as much money as they can, and then come back to California, but this time much stronger, in a much stronger position. Now they've got the $250,000 or $300,000 saved. They don't have to rent and be on a renter's treadmill. They can buy a condo or buy a small detached house. That's the same thing that happens in Vancouver. People come out here from all parts of Canada hoping to make it out here. Some do, some don't. Some have to work 3 jobs to make it happen. It's a young, vibrant city. But for everyone that leaves, just like in California, there's 2 that are taking their place. It's a never-ending churn of people that want to live on the West Coast and live in a city as great as Vancouver. But I've said before, for a young person, it's not an embarrassment to move out of Vancouver, go to a place that's much less expensive, save your money, and once you're able to buy, move back to Vancouver. Because let's face it, this is where everyone wants to live, but it's tough, as I've blogged about endlessly here. So again, go back and watch my earlier blogs on how Vancouver does not work off fundamentals. And if you think because wages aren't keeping pace with condo prices, and if you think somehow it's going to revert back to what the median income is here, so that would put that Yaletown condo back down to about $300,000. Don't hold your breath with that. I don't think it's going to happen. The horse has left the stable here. The toothpaste is out of the tube. These aspirational cities do not align themselves with the average wage. It just doesn't, and it will never revert back to that. Final thing I want to talk about, because I also get people that say, man, you sound like a typical realtor. You're so bullish on Vancouver real estate. Why are you so positive? Well, a couple of things. First off, unlike most bloggers out there, I've been in this business for 33, 34 years now, so I've seen a lot of stuff. I've always advocated people to buy your principal residence as opposed to becoming a lifetime renter. Buy it, you've crossed a huge hurdle there, and then let time do the magic for you. Keep it, you'll do fantastic. Max out your RSPs and your TFSAs, then maybe buy an investment property to help diversify your retirement. But the reason I'm so bullish, as I've talked about many times, is because, again, Vancouver is an aspirational city. The demand to live in Vancouver is only going to increase going further. It is. I look back, just take a look at photos of Vancouver from just 10 years ago. of downtown, or 15 or 20, or when Expo 86 was on. It's incredible the growth that we're going through here, the density that's been built up. And as I've talked about, land is not, we're not building any more land. We're also locked in here with the agricultural land reserve, water and mountains. When a typical developer now is paying 60, 70, 80, $100 million for a small parcel of land, those condos are going to be at 15, 16, 1700 a square foot and up moving forward, and well over 2,000 a square foot for some of the stuff coming out in Cole Harbour. I'm under the belief you can still buy here for around 1,000 a square foot. Concrete downtown, I think you'll look back on it 20 or 30 years as probably one of the best decisions you've ever made. But the reason I'm bullish on Vancouver real estate is it's not going to lose its desirability. The city is growing by leaps and bounds, and that desirability will continue, just like it will to live in Santa Monica or Venice or Hermosa Beach or Manhattan. Those desirable cities don't lose their desirability. Now, if something changed and the city decided we're going to close the seawall, we're going to close Grouse Mountain, Whistler's shutting down, we're going to close up all the good restaurants and all the good nightlife, and it's going to rain 300 days a year, and the desirability wanes, then I'll change my attitude towards the long-term outlook. But that's not going to happen. Vancouver every year gets a little bit better, and if you don't think that's the case, I understand. You're frustrated, nothing wrong, and I've seen these guys on Vancouver Sun and Globe and Mail bragging that they moved out of Vancouver years ago and never looked back. That's fantastic. I'm happy for you. But again, for every guy that moves out that can't cut it, doesn't think it's for him, there's two more to take your place, and that's not going to end. So that's the reason why I'm so bullish long-term on buying and holding Vancouver real estate. Again, it's an aspirational city. I travel extensively. I was in LA last week. I'm in New York next week. I'm all over the place. I go to Europe. I go to South America. I think my viewers here that have traveled can back me up on this, that Vancouver is a pretty special city. It's not the best city in the world, but it's up there amongst the top 20, 30, 40 places to live. And that's not me. It's consistently ranked in the top 5, and if not number 1, with all these international publications that rate cities on lifestyle and livability and safety and everything else. It's usually Vancouver, Sydney, Singapore. Those are always at the top of the list. But again, with these desirable cities, these aspirational cities like Vancouver, comes high real estate prices. It's the price you pay. It's not for everybody. As I've said many times before here, you got to work and you're going to have to hustle to get into a city like Vancouver and buy. It's not going to be easy, but I think it's well worth it. But I totally understand people that might think it's too much, it's gotten ahead of itself. Move to a cheaper city. I just had a client who was born and raised in Vancouver, moved to Toronto 15 years ago, has been working on Bay Street, making money, successful in his career. He's now ready to semi-retire. He's going to do some work out here. Sold his condo in Toronto and has just bought a Yaletown 2-bedroom, 2-bath Yaletown condo. That's aspirational cities for you. He enjoyed his time in Toronto, but couldn't help but dreaming about moving back to Vancouver. He took a better, higher paying job in Toronto, saved his money, and came back. And you see a lot of that. That's what these aspirational cities do. Unlike, don't get mad at me, Winnipeg or Saskatoon or Moose Jaw. So that's why I'm bullish. I don't see the demand or the desirability to live in a city as great as Vancouver ever changing. As a matter of fact, it's going to get stronger every year. All you have to do is look at the new developments and the prices of these new developments that they're going to be selling at to see where this pendulum is going here. I'm Owen Bigland. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.